very much, Neil, for that lovely introduction, and it's a pleasure and an honour to be here today. And I'm delighted to read with Rita and Louis, both of whom I've admired their work from afar, but I never met them before, so that's an added bonus. I'd like to start with Dry Stone Wall. I'll skim the scrawl, dig a trench wide and deep to hold the given stone. Lay silver grey against green, rocks with square planes to build off, slivers thin as slate and level in between. I lift the stones, test where they'll nestle into what's already there. Fill the middle with spalls, keep the edge stones from falling in. I use old stones, dappled with lichen and moss, leave gaps to let the wind blow through, nooks for pennyworth and heart's tongue to grow. I'll cover the joins, mine the batter, stack each course till it takes its place between two fields. Keep a few of the finest for the finish, long and flat capstones to span the width. I chose that poem to begin with because all three of us today happen to be from the West, and that's one of the things how I always know, because I live on the East now, but when you cross the Shannon, what you start to see is the dry stone walls, and it's how I know I'm home. I've been at a number of really good events this week here, and one of the ones I absolutely loved was John Parnham's one about eco-poetics. And it sent me looking at that question of, well, what kind of a nature poet am I? And I found this quote from Alice Oswald that I really liked. And she said, it's about nature poetry is about putting our inner worlds in contact with the outer world, a deep, slow process that used to be the remit of the rake. The ringer. It was my mother taught me to watch blood-breasted stone chaps on a barbed wire fence, to listen for the mournful song of a linnet, a meadow pipit's seeping alarm. I couldn't count how many I've caught, ringed, sexed, measured and weighed. But I'll always remember the first time in the woods beyond Skibbereen when I opened a mist net at dawn, held a goldcrest hammocked between finger and thumb, a rosebud in my palm, olive nape, yellow crown, eyes black and glistening as Kilkenny marble. I held my breath lest I harm her, turned my hand so she lay on her back. She settled as if lulled into a trance. I opened the cage of my fingers, a heartbeat, and she was gone. Stephen Sexton finished his lovely reading with a love poem just about an hour ago, and I thought I'd read a love poem as well. And this one, due to the wonder of marriage equality, my partner and I were able to get married last year, and but we'd been together a long time. So writing vows, I felt it wasn't with quite the innocence that you'd have when you write them maybe after 2 years or 3 years together. So 24 years later, these were my vows. Vows. I can't promise it's chiselled from gold in spirals that speak of forever. I can't tell you it's wise as a mountain with pines that reach for heaven. I can't promise it's flawless as honey, gathered by bees in bell heather. I can't say it's simple as silk, spun from cocoon into treasure. But I promise it's rooted as rowan, with berries that sing to September. I promise it's to and it's fro, with surprise like Glenmalure weather, a seasoned rowboat, moored or unmoored at your pleasure. When you come to put together a collection, it's amazing what you see in your work. It's really only when you pull it together like that that you begin to see things. And one of the things I saw was that my maternal grandmother found her way into these poems quite a lot. And this one, she lost her mother when she was 6. And there was something about that I found so striking. I was always, kind of wondering, from a very young child, what that would have been like. And so this is imagining what that might have been like for her. Among the cows. Her father knew where to find her. She liked to stand among the cows. They smelled of winter and the dark. They let her lean into their warm bellies. She watched them in the fields as they moved solid and slow, wrapped their tongues around sweet grass. She found her own tune in their lowing, learned to milk as soon as her hands were strong enough to squeeze. When her mother died, her father wore his grief the way he wore his Sunday suit, as if it belonged to someone else. She would listen to the calves calling for days when weaned, until their voices, exhausted, faded like mist from the fields. In the last reading from the National Poetry Competition, Caleb and Tom as well, there was lots of lovely rhythm and rhyme, and that encouraged me to read this pantoum. And during the week, I've had 2 emails from Australia recently, one of whom is here. Alice Hamilton is here, who sent me an email about the river. But then I also got one from a woman who had grown up in Roscommon, and she said, I was one of the women on the boat amongst the 40,000 young people who left Ireland in 1960. On the boat. On the boat, we were mostly virgins. We talked about who we were going to be. Waitresses, seamstresses, nurses. We didn't talk about why we had to leave. We talked about where we were going to be. The wooden frame house with the picket fence, but we didn't talk about why we had to leave as we touched the lockets around our necks. The wooden frame house with the picket fence led to talk of lost villages, lost streets, as we touched the lockets around our necks. We didn't foresee tenements that grew thick as trees when we talked of lost villages, lost streets, and the diligent men we were going to marry. We didn't foresee tenements that grew thick as trees, the suitcase of memories we would have to carry to the diligent men we were going to marry when we were waitresses, seamstresses, nurses, nor the suitcase of memories we would have to carry from the boat where we were mostly virgins. We've had a bit of chat amongst ourselves, Louis and Rita, earlier, and I was outed as a Protestant. And then Then Louis mentioned that his wife is a Protestant, so I'm going, this is for Shirley. And I guess for me it's about, I guess, the lasting influence of religion in your life, even when you give it up intellectually, the emotional resonance that it has for me in my life. Sing. Let choirs make frosty nights sing. Let them tell stories of shepherds caring for sheep, a stable, a donkey, a star in the east, while you remember the road to the church in the woods, the battened door, timber trusses, peeling paint and plaster that fell like snow on the christening font and harmonium, the pot-bellied stove that offered a smidgen of heat, candlelight soft on the Bible, lying open to Isaiah. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. Let yourself sing, diminuendo or crescendo, as if you still believed. So I'm going to read some new work next, but before I do that, I want to read the title poem of my collection, The River. I nearly always read it. It's like a good talisman for me. And before I read it, I do want to take this opportunity to say thank you to Neil and to all in Bloodaxe books, because I'm so grateful for what the beautiful book they gave me, and for all their support since its publication. I couldn't ask for more. The River. What surprises me now is not that you're gone, but how I go on without you. As if I had lost no more than a finger. My hand still strong, perhaps stronger, can do what it needs to, like carving your name on a branch from the beach by the suck, letting the river take you so I can call myself free. Only sometimes, like yesterday or the day before, last night or this morning, the river flows backwards, uphill to my door. So that one always makes me feel emotional somehow or other. 4 Stories Up is a poem that's on the RTE website this week, Poem of the Week. And I'm reading it for Peter and Mary. Peter's my brother-in-law and Mary his wife, who are here. They're from Dublin, but they're living in Bristol. And you see, this poem is Dublin in the summer, so that's why I'm reading it for the two of you. 4 stories up, on a derelict building beside the canal, a gang of sinewy lads queues to dive. Cheers break out with every daredevil leap. They ignore the relics of trolleys, prams and bikes, the broken bottles beneath. They jump because it's summer, because it's hot, because of the girls that watch. They only need a clear run at the water. When I met Louis yesterday, we had a coffee, and we were talking about some other projects we have on hand, and sort of talking about our concerns. You know, the concerns when you're asked to do something, and then there's your own work, and which direction do you go in, and how does what you're asked to do influence what you might be doing otherwise, and all of that. But I'm working on a project of a sequence of poems in relation to World War I, and so I'm going to read. I'll read 2 of them this afternoon. After we're gone, farmers will level this ground, backfilling shell holes and trenches. picking coins, buttons, tin cups, bootlaces, shaving mugs, razors, from soil that has buried letters, curses, men and horses. They'll never know one of the lads keeps celandine and meadowsweet in a whiskey glass by his pallet. Another passes the time at the parapet, naming the flowers in his mother's garden. Foxgloves, lupins, heart's ease, sweet pea. When I try to forget the smell of fermenting flesh, I see neighbours with pitchforks, rakes and scythes, between hedges scented by honeysuckle and wild rose. And the series that I'm doing, the sequence, is based on letters and photographs to do with the soldier and his sister. And his sister became, we heard about it in The Cause, the session that was on here last night, became one of the Land Army. And she actually came to Malvern. And there's a photograph of her beside a Jersey cow in Malvern. Malvern. Far from piano practice in Hampstead, my days in Malvern begin and end with coaxing milk from a Jersey cow. Tall as my hip, the gentlest creature I've ever met, she waits by the manger while I, on a three-legged stool, tuck myself close to her belly, my legs hugging the bucket tight. I hold each other between thumb and first finger, then squeeze. It takes time to find the flowing movement that'll release the milk. Meanwhile, my companion stands, her warm teats filling my hands, empty and cold for so long. So the last group of poems I'm going to read is a sequence about my father, and it's based on a lot of it from the last 2 months when we nursed him at home. But the first one is before he came home for his last 2 months. He stood at the top of the stairs, insisting he could go down himself. But like a frightened bullock refusing the crush, his body wouldn't move from the spot where I used to sit in the dark, listening to rows in the kitchen when my mother showed him the bill from the shop. He stood at the top of the stairs in a fever that came on him as fast as nightfall in winter. Steep, narrow steps between him and the ambulance ticking outside the back door. He stood there in check pyjamas and thick Wellington socks, in the house where he was born and had sworn he would never leave. I held him from behind, my brother in front, coaxing with a tenderness I'd never seen between them. Come on, Dad, just one step, one step. When he falls asleep at the kitchen table and drops another cup, my mother bends without a word, sweeps up the broken pieces in her hands, looking out for shards in case he wanders barefoot in the night. I've got you. Through days of morphine, tidbits to tempt his appetite, there's nowhere else to be. I hold his teacup to his lips, wash his face and the hands I rarely touched. During the night, Old hurts and worries surface like stones in a well-tilled field. What time is it now, he asks, on the hour. He sings to himself and murmurs lines he learned as a child. All we, like sheep, have gone astray. We have turned every one to his own way. When he asks to get up, I hold his wrists, brace my weight against his. For a moment, he's confused. It's okay, Jamie. I've got you. Go on now. You can stand. When Dad died, we had 2 days of awake. And because we knew there would be so many people, and we had to divide it into 2 days. And still in all, we were amazed at how many came. And for me, it was something about how rural Ireland has changed incredibly, and it is so modern, and it is still so traditional. And my brother-in-law Peter said it was a bit like a chieftain had died. So this poem is about that time. And so this is my last poem. I forgot to look at the clock when I was starting, so I think it's about right, okay. And, okay. So again, just thank you very much. Yeah, to have such attention is wonderful, and to read to a big hall full of people is very invigorating. Respects. From Rooski, Creemully, Loughlin, Kiltoom, Kilbegnet, Moylis, Brideswell, Lecarrow, Craigs, Atleague, Ballinleg, Carrowkeel. They came to pay their respects. They shook hands with us, stood by his body and bowed their heads. Cattlemen, sheepmen, carpenters, teachers, foresters, nurses, mart managers, vets. They said prayers, laid their hands on his chest and blessed themselves, then filled the kitchen with the man they knew, a grand man altogether, always out early, a hardy hoor, a good judge of a bullock, fierce man to work, a man of his word. He had woeful hands. I slipped out for a while to see the flawless orange globe hung low over the common, and a flock of whooper swans feasting on the last of the winter grass.